Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Good
Bienvenue à
evening,
cette
everyone.
réunion
Welcome
du Conseil municipal, réunion
to the
stratégie
council
et de
meeting,
politique
strategies and
publique.
public
Et c'est une
policies
soirée où
meeting.
on reçoit des présentations
This
de
evening, we will
différents
be
groupes
hearing
de la
presentations from
communauté.
various community
C'est pas une
groups.
réunion où on prend des
This isn't
décisions
a
concrètes.
decision-making meeting
C'est
as such.
justement à titre d'information pour informer nos
We're here to
citoyens
provide
des
information
choses qui
to
se
keep our
passent parce que
citizens aware
malheureusement,
of
pas tout
what's
le monde
going
est
on.
plugué tout le temps
Unfortunately, not everyone is plugged in all the
savoir qu'est-ce qui se
time
passe avec la ville.
and
Alors,
looking to see what's
c'est
happening
toujours
in the
une
city.
occasion,
So this is always a
le
great
troisième
opportunity
vendredi du mois.
on the third Monday.
Troisième lundi du mois,
I'm sorry, the third Monday
J'ai
of
tendance à
the
dire
month.
mercredi.
It's a good thing
Alors,
it's
c'est
not
ça, les
Wednesday.
lundis.
So
Quelque
that's
chose qui
right.
remplace
So this
tous
is
les troisièmes lundis
happens on the third Monday of the
pour
month in
faire
order
avancer les choses, recevoir
to
des
move things
présentations.
forward,
Mais encore
listen
une
to
fois, il y
presentations.
a pas de
And
décision
once again,
sur ces
no
réunions-là. C'est
decisions
à titre
are
d'information communautaire et pour les membres du
being
conseil.
made either
Alors,
for
sans
community
plus
business
tarder,
or
la
members of
première
council.
présentation,
Without further ado, our first
M.
presentation this
Melançon
evening,
qui va nous
Mr.
parler
Melançon is here to
d'un
tell
événement qui
us
prend place depuis
about an event
pas mal longtemps. Je vais pas
that's
voler
happening
son
far
annonce.
ahead in the
Alors,
future. I'm not going
merci
to
encore
take
une fois pour tous vos
his
efforts
place. So thank you once
pour
again for all
ce
your
bel événement
efforts
qui prend place
for this
chez
great
nous
event, which is
à
happening
Dieppe
in our
depuis un bout de
community
temps
of Dieppe and has been
et
going on
pour
for a
d'autres raisons
while,
aussi dans la région
also in the
pour plus longtemps.
region, and for even longer than that.
Bonsoir, bienvenue.
So good evening and welcome.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Mon nom, c'est David Melançon.
I'm David Melançon.
Classique.
I am president of the
Ici,
Classic,
je veux remercier quelques
and I would like
personnes en
to thank
particulier.
some people in
La ville de
particular,
Dieppe,
the
Luc
city of
Bugeaud, une
Dieppe,
des raisons
Luc
que je
Bugeaud.
suis ici devant vous ce
He's the
soir,
reason
c'est
I'm
à cause
here
de
in
Luc
front of
Bugeaud,
you tonight is because of Luc Bugeaud
Denis
and
Leblanc.
Denis
Aussi, je
Leblanc.
veux remercier
And
tous et toutes les
also, I
employés de la
thank
ville de
all
Dieppe.
the employees
Et
of
juste une
the
petite
city of
histoire
Dieppe.
pour David
And a quick
Melançon. Mon
story
père,
about
Herman
David
Melançon,
Melançon.
était
My father, Herman
le maire,
Melançon,
l'ancien maire du
was the
village
former
de
mayor
Fox Creek.
of
Puis
Fox
des
Creek
années plus tard, il
town.
était le membre du
A
conseil
few
de
years later,
82 à 89.
he was a
Puis
member of
j'ai
council from
jamais
82 to
eu la
89.
chance de
And
dire
I never
merci
really
à la ville
had
de
the
Dieppe parce que
opportunity to say thank you to the
finalement,
city of
vous avez
Dieppe,
nommé une
because
rue
at the end of it,
d'aller
you
Herman
named a
qui
street
se
after
trouve
him, Herman
presque
Street,
sur
which is
son terrain à Fox Creek. So,
almost on
je veux
his
vraiment
former
donner un gros
property in
merci.
Fox Creek. So
J'apprécie,
a big thank you to you.
j'apprécie que vous
I
avez fait
really
ça.
appreciate that you did that.
So, toute la famille
And
et moi,
the family
merci.
and I thank you.
Alors, je vais discuter du tournoi classique.
So let me tell you about the Classic
Vous pouvez voir la
hockey
conférence de
tournament.
presse qu'on a eue en
The
novembre
press conference was held back in
2024
November of
avec
2024
avec les
with
joueurs,
the
les équipes de la
players,
conférence de l'Est,
teams
garçons et
from
filles.
the conference, girls and boys,
Alors, ma
players.
présentation,
And
je vais
so
parler un peu de
in my
l'histoire du
presentation,
tournoi.
I'll be telling you a little bit
On
about
est
the
à Dieppe
history
depuis
of the tournament.
2021.
We've been in
On est
Dieppe
vraiment
now since
heureux d'être ici à
2021,
Dieppe.
and we're very pleased
Je
to
vais
be
parler un peu
here.
de notre site web.
Let me tell you a little
On
bit
a une
about
page
our
Facebook
website.
aussi
We also
cette
have
année
a
à cause que
Facebook
c'est le
page
50e
this year
tournoi
because it's
classique.
the 50th
Un de nos
Classic
partenaires, c'est
Championship.
Hockey Nouveau-Brunswick.
One of our partners is
On veut que
Hockey
ça soit quelque
New-Brunswick,
chose
and we want
vraiment
to do
spécial. On va
something
faire
very special
ce qu'en bon
to
français, un
that end.
fan fest.
So we're going to be holding a fan
Et
fest,
on souhaite
and we
que
are
peut-être j'aurai plus de détails ou plus
wishing for, and I
d'informations, de
might have more
choses de
information,
donner à
facts and figures
Monsieur
to
Denis
provide
Leblanc, mais je
Mr.
sais
Denis
que
Leblanc,
vous êtes vraiment généreux
but
parce que je
I
peux
know
pas
that
en dire
you're very
quelque
generous. I
chose
might
aussi
be
en surplus de plus.
asking for something
De
a
la
little
ville de
bit
Dieppe, juste
extra
de nous
from the
aider
city
pour
of
que ça
Dieppe
soit un
to
événement
help
vraiment
us make
spécial.
this a really special event.
Alors ici, juste un peu sur l'histoire, durant l'histoire du
So a
tournoi.
quick overview
Ça a
of
commencé à Moncton.
the championship. It began in Moncton.
International
Many
commencé
international
de voir
teams attended
la
the
Suède,
championship.
l'Europe,
Sweden,
que ce soit
European teams,
les
England,
Américains.
UK, Czechoslovakia, American teams
C'était vraiment
came.
quelque chose de spécial durant
It
les
was
années
truly
90
special
que les équipes
in the
extérieures des autres pays
1990s
participaient.
that
Si vous pouvez
teams
apprécier
from other
cette image,
countries
c'est que c'est
were
vraiment
attending.
différent lieu de
But as you can imagine, it's very difficult to travel from Europe
zone du
to
sud-est.
here in the southeastern
Alors,
part
je
of
pense
the
que la dernière fois
province.
qu'une équipe
So I think the
d'Europe a
last time a
participé, c'est
European
en
team came was in
2009, si je me souviens.
2009, if I'm right.
Cette
This is the face-off, official face-off. You can see your deputy mayor, who might still be on the council, and Louis Godet, who was president of the championship for many years, Sean Crossman, and at the time, Councillor Greg Turner, and I'm in the picture as well, and a River player and a Mathieu Martin player. This was a very special game. It was in 1982 between Moncton High and Mathieu Martin at the Colisée. More than 6,000 spectators came to see the game. It also happened again in 1988. There was a final game between Mathieu Martin and Moncton High, and another 6,000 people showed up to attend the game. Since we've been in Dieppe since 2021, here's the face-off. Pete Beliveau, the mayor. It was during COVID. So we want to say thank you to Pete because he was the honorary president in 2021 at the press conference. So boys and girls were playing at the same time. It's the only high school tournament where this happens. So a lot of special things are special to the classic. Clément Cormier won in 2021, and the girls from Le Lycée also won in 2021. In 2022, the honorary president was the former principal of Moncton High, Mike DeLong. So we did a presentation to Mike at the banquet at Mathieu Martin High School. Here you can see the all-star teams. This is why we bring a lot of teams in from places like Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia teams, as well as New Brunswick teams. These are the 6 provinces where they have school hockey as part of their varsity teams. The other high schools don't have it. So here you can see the Quebec team, which won the championship in 2022 in the girls division. Another Quebec team won Division 1 and Division 2. The boys here in 2022, the Manitoba girls won the tournament, it's Division 2. So we give a lot of options to the teams. We want the games to be 2-1 or 3-2. We don't want a 7-0 game. This is often why we have 2 divisions, not only for the boys, but for the girls as well. Our honorary president was Normand Légère, who does so much for sports here in the southeastern part of the province. He was our honorary president. And I'll tell you that one thing we're very happy about are the scholarships. We have given out more than $100,000 worth of scholarships. So we're extremely proud of we've been able to accomplish that. In 2023, the Halifax team won on the boys' side. The girls of Harrison Trimble came in the 2nd division, and the girls won Division 1. Louis Robichaud School, another Quebec team, won the boys' team in Division 2. And in 2024, the championship was, our honorary term was Roland Melançon. It was a major volunteer. He was vice president of the championship for many years. He then retired, and I would always say to Roland, "You're going to replace me. You're going to replace me." However, this is going to be my last championship as president, but I found someone who is going to replace me. I'm really pleased about that, and we're working on a new structure for our committee for the 50th anniversary. I'm sorry, for the 50th anniversary, that's right. Once again, another face-off for the girls. As I said, we give out a lot of scholarships. We have skills competitions. Here, other girls who won a competition. The Sussex team won the Mathieu Martin Stars. Congratulations to them. Oh, let me move back one moment here. These were It was Clément Cormier that beat Mathieu Martin in the final game, and the arena at the Uniplex was jam-packed. And we were really pleased to see the community show up for these games. We also have a website which provides much more information. So do not hesitate to go and visit that website with all the details. It's a bilingual website in both French and English. There's also an official Facebook page. We share quite a bit of information on that Facebook page. Our partners for the 50th championship will be Hockey New-Brunswick, and they will be looking after our competitions, the skills competition. So
for the 50th annual. So we're really extremely excited to have them on board helping us. Il y a des choses spéciales qu'on va faire.
A lot of special things are going to be happening during the 50th championship. I'm already in contact with the Hockey Hall of Fame, and we're hoping for activities outside the rink in the parking lot, for example, like the hardest shot competition or accuracy shooting. We'll have music, we'll have local musicians from the Southeast, and potentially a ball hockey tournament.
Extra special things like Hockey Hall of Fame is on board to help us. Hardest shot competition, accuracy shooting, and have some local musicians. And we feel pretty confident that we'll be able to do this in the parking lot, kind of in a small area of the parking lot, that we'll be able to have these things. We want to make it a really special tournament. So on veut que ça soit un tournoi vraiment.
We want to make this a very special tournament. So we are very thankful to the city of Dieppe and staff for their support since 2021. And during the 2024 championship, crowds were amazing. I've been the president since 2005, and I could say that for the crowds, it was the most people in attendance since 2006. So for this 50th anniversary, I'm asking for the city to help us, especially for the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's going to cost a certain amount to bring trophies in from Toronto to Dieppe. I don't really have a budget right now. I'm waiting. The person I'm waiting for help is at the Four Nations Cup in Boston. When they get back to Toronto, they'll prepare a budget for me, and I'll be sharing that budget with Denis Leblanc, and to see whether you would be interested in giving us a hand. That's my hope, and I'll be applying. And as I was saying,
we really appreciate the support from the city of Dieppe since we've been here. And moi, je veux dire, j'ai grandi ici toute ma vie.
You know, I've lived here all my life. I went to Mathieu Martin, and I'm truly proud that I was a citizen of the city of Dieppe. So I live in Moncton now, but anyway, you know, when I was living in Dieppe, the championship was in Moncton. I moved to Moncton, the championship went back to Dieppe. Anyway, on behalf of the Classic, I want to say thank you. And I hope I took a little more than 10 minutes. Any questions? Questions? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Melançon, I don't have any questions. I just want to say that you named many people who have chaired this event. And I remember even further back than that, the time that you put into minor hockey Dieppe with the young people and the great work that you did with them. So I want to thank you on behalf of the city for all the work you've done and the years of work you've put in. It's sad that you finishing your career as president this year, but thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure when I was the coach of the Mathieu Martin Matadors to have the opportunity to coach your son, Justin. That was a privilege. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Godbout. Hello. Given that it's your last year, and have you any comments about the success? Anything that helped ensure the success of I'm an engineer, but I also have a degree in teaching, but I'm proud of the scholarships. We gave scholarships out at the 49th championship, and I'm making a promise that we're going to give out 10 scholarships this year for the 50th. Thank you. Anyone else? Let me put my 2 cents in for what it's worth. Thank you for your excellent work. I had the privilege of being on the council with your father. We always say that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. There is no doubt in my mind of that. Congratulations and much success. You're not going to be very far away. So thank you. Thank you very much. Many young people have taken advantage of this tournament over the years, and we've grown up with this championship, and it's great to be able to see that it's been added on to in the past years, that the girls are playing as well. They've been they've been playing for quite a while, and it was high time for them to be there too. Timing is everything, they say. Thank you. Thank you. It's just you and our hero from Recreation who's going to resolve the rest of the matters. He's a great guy. We expected nothing less. Thank you so much. That was item number 1. Let's move on to item number 2. We'll get back to more mechanical issues. And by mechanical, I mean business-related issues. Let's talk about the residential water meter project, because I know that it's something which has been the topic of many years of thought and reflection, and I think that a great deal of work has been done in the last few years to see where the city of Dieppe should head with regard to this file. So thank you for this presentation. Yes, Gabriel. We call him Gab, but his name is Gabriel. Thank you and welcome. Thank you, councillors. I'm Gabriel Béliveau. I'm a manager for water in the city of Dieppe. I'm here to give you an analysis of the report on residential water meters and a staff recommendation. So we requested Kelly's Consulting and Municipal Services Limited, and we asked staff from various sectors of the city. One of my employees also worked on this project as well, Valérie Michaud. So to begin, as the mayor just mentioned, we've been talking about this issue for quite a while. As far as I know, it started back in 2014 with a study report by G.A. Eisner Consulting. The update for this report was done in 2019, and then there was a session for council in July 2021. And from that report, we installed water meters at property lines, private systems in Domaine du Ruisseau and Dover. In 2022, we brought forward another presentation to council on the residential water meter issue. In 2023, the municipality installed 2 water meters on the Place Champlain private line, and in 2024, we requested Kelly's Consulting and Municipal Services Limited to provide a report on a study of the water meters. The last report that we given to council there were questions about the feasibility and the cost. So we put the emphasis on those issues, but there were the advantages and disadvantages, and we'll be dealing with that.
Alors, je vais commencer avec la recommandation
Let me
universelle.
begin with the staff recommendation. At the outset, the residential water meter project, which included the pilot project, is not recommended. And I'll give you the details of this in the presentation because the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. So the report consists of the current management situation, the advantages of having residential water meters, the inconveniences or disadvantages. We'll move on to costs, rates, and we'll compare with consumption from other municipalities, and we'll move on to the conclusion and give you time for questions. So the current management system is that we have our own drinking water system, and we collect wastewater. There are water reservoirs, and so the drinking water is of great quality in Dieppe. The water from sewers, wastewater, is collected from the waste, but we buy water from the city of Moncton with meters on Champlain Street and another one on Harrisville Boulevard. We buy water from Moncton and it's treated at Turtle Creek. There's a good treatment system there, and it provides water to Dieppe, and also wastewater is treated by Transaqua. At the current time, Dieppe has no residential water meters, but we have 646 non-residential water meters. So we don't have any residential water meters, but we still have about 650 non-residential water meters. It includes businesses, industrial, commercial, institution, or multi-residential units. Detecting water consumption is constant for these clients. And as I said, we have some water meters for
Alors,
private
pour les
systems.
avantages d'avoir des compteurs d'eau,
The advantages of having water meters for residences is basically coming forward from the consultants. So there's a better management of the water system and client service. Water conservation for the first 5 years specifically is going to go down. However, billing is more fair and precise. It's more variable. There's a difference in the consumption. With regard to the disadvantages, there's the implementation costs, and it's about $6 million of cost. The maintenance costs are costly too, and then there's a increase in human resources requirements. Let's look at the costs. The consultant looked at how much it would cost to go into every home that didn't have a water meter and install one. For the purchase of the water meter and its installation, which would be included, this was the amount was 9,100 water meters, but we continue to grow, so it's be a little higher than that. So these were 2023 figures. The other operational costs, like human resources, additional human resources technology, and water treatment and sewer water treatment, only continue to increase. And if we have these water meters, the costs have to be payable. I also added that the uncertainties about purchasing costs of these water meters from the US, we know that we buy a lot of them from the US because these things aren't made in Canada. Right now, for residential costs, most of the residential clients would have a bill either higher or equal to what they're paying right now. So currently, as I mentioned, we have a fixed rate which covers a lot of expenditures. And if we went into the residences, the majority wouldn't see a big change. The majority would either be a little higher or equal to what they're paying now. So the consultant's proposal, rather than having a fixed rate, which is a simple one, suggests that they have a base rate and a consumption rate. And so to split that in two, that your life cycle, you would be replaced by a water meter because the lifespan would be 15 to 20 years. So after 15 to 20 years, either the battery wears out or there's maintenance to be done for the replacement of this water meter. And so we would put that into the base rate and then look at it later. There's more details here, but the base rate would include financing of the project, future replacement, and additional staff, which would be dealing with the treatment of wastewater. So it would be 446 per year, and then the utilization rate would be 311 per cube meter. So for the comparison, we had asked the City of Moncton for their figures. These are current figures with a big sampling rather than having a pilot project. So this would be more realistic with a similar population to ours. And one person consumes 5 to 7 cubic meters per month, so 170 to 230 liters per day. So we use, rather than having a minimum and a maximum, we use these 6 cubic meters per month in our calculations. So to look at the last Stats Canada census, the average size of homes in Dieppe is 2.4 people. That's why we say most of residential clients would have a higher or equal billing. And so if you look at consumption alone, it would be a little less than the costs of 948. So one person would be that amount, 2 people would be 248, 20% more, and with the third person would be about 40-some% more. So this table is a table which shows the current costs. It's more simple, less administrative stress. The actual costs stay the same. And in red, you have the cost of your water meter, which varies, and the actual cost, which would change with the difference in consumption.
Alors, pour conclure,
in conclusion, after a thorough analysis, the recommendation is not to proceed with a residential water meter program based on 3 key factors. We thought there'd be a big savings, but that's not what we saw with the report. There's not a substantial savings, and there is a huge implementation and ongoing maintenance cost. And the other factor is the complexity of the computer technologies and billing systems. We have a system that's not easy to manage, but we would need staff. So to manage the billing aspect. And so that's about it. Are there any questions? Thank you. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Gaudette. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. I just have more of a comment than a question. Maybe we should focus more on educating people about their water consumption. So, like a leaking toilet, some people don't think about that. For example, I have a water meter. I've had it for several years. I'm aware of it. And anything that, whenever there's a leak, or I try to use as little water as possible. So I think we could spend money on that, educating people, because that's, educating people about how to save money. Some people don't think about it. Just a toilet that leaks for weeks, People don't think about it, and that consumes a lot of water. So I agree with you. You know, there's the cost element, but it's maybe more, we should focus more on educating people. And then maybe, so that's what I have to say. I agree. We have more work to do on the education piece and make sure, you know, and it's not a lack of willingness, but you know, if your toilet is leaking, that wastes water. And you know, watering your lawn in the summer as well, or over watering it. Some people do water too much. It's like people who drive their car too quickly. You know, once you catch them, it's too late. But when you know, you're trying to manage people who love to have a super green lawn, and they use a lot of water to get one.
Véhicule à moteur, mais c'est un petit peu le même défi.
You know, it's a challenge for communities. Councillor Jeannet, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. It's too bad, you know, that the cost isn't worth the effort. But you know, from another perspective, though, did you see other measures taken by other cities to reduce the consumption among certain, you know, we don't all consume water to the same extent, you know, and as you mentioned, some people, you know, water their lawns constantly. You know, their pool is constantly being filled. I don't know, but did you look? Yes, we did look at other municipalities, both in Quebec and New-Brunswick, and some have incentive programs to encourage people to reduce their use, and sometimes pools will come with extra costs. You know, there are attempts to encourage little or less consumption, and in Dieppe we're a bit different. You know, we share the water and the treatment, rather the source and the treatment. But some cities have, you know, they have to pay their entire bill for water treatment. But we talked to Riverview, and they're not interested right away in working with us. I contacted Beresford as well. It was the same thing. They buy water from Bathurst, but there are other municipalities that want to go ahead with meters, especially those who in the past already had meters, and it's less costly to maintain. I think there might be a sense of injustice or unfairness. You know, some people, you know, we pay the same bill, whereas other people use a lot more water than others. And but maybe if we could find a way to reduce people's consumption. Yeah, it's a team effort. Yes. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I want to come back to the same 2 points. You know, I agree with Councillor Gaudette. The potential plan of installing water meters, you know, that it kind of answered that. It was a response to that education, the need to educate people about consumption. So I think we'll have to find a way to help our citizens reduce their consumption if we don't go ahead with this metering project. That was the means, that was our means to that end. But if we decide not to go ahead, you know, we have to then we should have another option, so that we can arrive at the same conclusion, which is to reduce, or the same result, which is to reduce consumption. So I agree with Councillor Gaudette's question. Another question that I had was raised by Councillor Jeannet. you know, this idea of unfairness. Everybody pays the same bill, but they don't necessarily use the same amount of water. I think in our city, you know, seniors are telling us that it's you know, they don't use a lot of water, but they're paying the same amount as people, you know, the family beside them that has 4 kids and a pool. And so there could be a sense of unfairness with this decision. So we have to think of how we're going to respond to those comments and how we can improve. Maybe we can find other incentives. So that's something that I see. We have a group in society that's more vulnerable, that's not using the resource, but it's paying the same price as the group, another group that's using it more. And maybe they're using more than their share. So I think we have to think about that. We have to bring that unfairness to the attention of people who are overusing water. So one of the consequences of this decision, you know, is that sense of unfairness. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Councillor Jeannet, but I think that's what you were referring to. And that's something that, you know, that we'll have to address. You know, the meter, for me, that was a way of, that was our way of going, that we were going to solve this problem. So what, if we don't go in that direction, you know, what are the alternatives? Councillor Leboutier. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and for the analysis. I just want to say this, and you know, and I agree with the councillors, and you know, we have to look at the issue of costs. Now, on page 63, it's important. Now, you just compared the usage of water. Well, in the costs, when you're not adding, you know, the costs of installation, repairs, human resources, and things like that, that would add an additional cost to that $649. You're talking about the initial cost? Yeah, your total annual cost. That cost that you indicated on that page, it's just the usage, right? That it just reflects usage. You're talking about the base rate, your total annual cost on page 63.
Okay.
So on a comparé avec les résultats que Moncton
So
avait.
you know, we compared with Moncton, you know, so, and you were asking what again? Well, what I'm saying is that, you know, the 689, you know, if we added all the additional costs that associated, you know, additional staff, maintenance, technology, and so forth, you know, even your $689 would be a lot more. That amount is just the usage, right? I think we had calculated at $3.11 per cubic meter. That's what that amount is based on. I don't. Mr. Richard, maybe? I'm going to maybe re-ask my question. Okay, the $689, what is that figure based on? I can answer that question. This is Stéphane here. Yes, go ahead, Stéphane. You were the next on my list. Go ahead. So the 689 that you're referring to is the total cost per person, depending on the amount of water that they use. So it covers everything. So human resources, the new loan, and so forth. So everything is included in that amount of. Okay, thank you. Do we need do you want to add something, Mr. Richard? You're on. Well, maybe you can. I just had a question with regard to the consumption of water, but I think and Gabrielle might be able to add something to this. But in the last 10 years, we maintained or even reduced our consumption of water despite the growth that we've seen. And I don't know if I'm wrong. Maybe you can correct that. But so that was good news, and that was an observation that we made. With despite the growth that we've seen, we've managed our water well. Yeah, despite the strong growth of the city, our consumption didn't go up. So we don't. We all we know that there are some people that are taking advantage of the system, but most people are their usage is quite constant, or our usage rather is quite constant. Any other further questions from councillors? Councillor Godbout. Oh, I had a question that I asked, or that I forgot to ask. In the analysis, at one point, would things be different with the forecasted densification in the city? So this is based on 2021, with the population in 2021, and we know and we expect to see quite strong growth. But at one point, does this financial analysis, would the decision be different if things changed? I'm not sure that the consultant looked at the forecasts. I don't think he looked at that. No. Well, I can ask that if you like, or I can answer that rather. So the analysis was done with the data from 2021 to 2024, but at no time would this decision make financial sense. If we buy water meters, by having more people hired, having to, and it would cost an additional $1 million to the budget. So instead of having a budget of 17 million, it would be 16 million, it would be 17 million. And it would be divided by the same number of users. And what that means is that the extra $1 million divided by the number of users means that it would cost approximately $100 more per users. Now,
l'astérix ou la différence dans notre comparaison, parce que cette personne-là, oui, comme on a vu tantôt, paierait environ 690, $700 au lieu de payer 948, donc une économie à ce.
So one person, a single household would pay less, but households with 2, 3, or 4 people would pay a lot more. So there would be no there wouldn't be no savings even if the population went up by 20,000 people in the next over the next few years. The calculation wouldn't change and wouldn't make a decision. Well, a population burst or a growth would not make a huge difference. No. Any further questions from councillors? Your Worship, I might like to make a comment here. The municipality's philosophy in all areas is that when we offer services, we share. So whether it's sports facilities or infrastructure, or whether there's 1 or 8 people in your household, that's the approach that we've taken when we establish the costs. So this is another example, and it's the same principle. So yes, maybe one person consumes less water in this example, but this might be someone who doesn't go to parks or to the arena or to the aquatic center. This might, be someone who uses less snow clearing services. So our approach is to share the costs on behalf of all residents. And the figures show that we never kind of recoup our costs. So So that was just a comment that I wanted on the other services that we have written, and our approach is similar. Thank you. Are there any other questions? No further questions? Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all those who participated in the discussion. And thank you for the explanations that were given.
Prochaine présentation.
Next presentation.
The City's Institute Higher Learning.
The City Institute of Higher Learning. Good evening, everyone. City Institute of Higher Learning. CIHL.
Tu peux manipuler avec le stylo. Merci. Oui, parfait, merci. Bonsoir tout le monde.
Bonsoir.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Amina Diaffer. I'm the coordinator of partnerships at the CIHL, and my apologies in advance. I'm a little nervous. This is the first time that I've done a presentation like this. So I'm, as I said, I'm the coordinator of partnerships at the CIHL. This is an educational facility. We're based in Moncton. We're a bilingual facility.
Ça peut pas. Comme ça. Enfin, désolé.
My apologies.
C'est pas la même chose. Ah, très bien. C'est un problème technique, désolé.
Technical problems, sorry.
C'est ça. Ça gèle à cause du froid à l'extérieur.
It's because of the cold outside.
Excusez-moi, là, je vais essayer de voir ici. Bon. Ah, ouais.
Petite flèche ici, comme ça.
Ah, très bien. Ouais. Oui, bon.
Deuxième départ.
Ouais.
Right. We'll start over. Okay, sorry about that. So we're part of the Institute of International Education Canada, founded in 2013. And during COVID, we had to stop operations.
Nous avons une large gamme de diplômes
We
professionnels.
have a lot of programs geared to professionals and students who have completed their studies either at the master's level or at the bachelor's level.
Ah, je suis désolée. Nous avons des étudiants.
We have students from around the world. We work with partners, universities in Ivory Coast, Ghana, Kenya, Brazil, and in Canada as well. So we're an international institution. We have students in 13 countries. So Canada, United Kingdom, China, India, Jamaica, Brazil. You see them listed here. All our professors have a doctorate or a PhD. And those are our partners, as I mentioned. So we have diploma programs in global studies, management, and research skills. We also have an executive diploma in management. We have specialized diplomas in research, an advanced diploma in business management, and a diploma in social sciences and business management. Most of our programs are the equivalent to a master's program, or but we have the advanced diploma is equivalent to a bachelor's degree. We also offer postdoctoral experience programs, and these are for students who have completed their PhD or their doctorate and who want to do a research project. We currently have students from India and from England. We also offer training to executives and counselors. So HR planning, team building, training the trainers, workshops on equality and diversity, employing and working with immigrants, drafting policies for small businesses, and financial literacy. We also have short executive certificates. So there's a certificate in training and consulting, one in working with immigrants, one in research assistance, and these last 5 to 6 months, and they are geared to people who work with immigrants. As you know, when we receive a number of immigrants here, and it can be difficult to manage them and to deal with them because of the multicultural aspect. We also have a certificate in research assistance, an immigrant executive development program, a global executive leadership development program, and project management essentials. All of these certificates are geared to businesses who want to develop their employee skills and so forth. We also do research. We work with businesses that want to conduct research in business, economics, or social spheres. We also have a community program in different languages, so English, Chinese, Hindi, Ukrainian, French, Spanish, Arab, and Korean. And we are currently trying to promote English and French. Because we have immigrants who don't have a high level of English, so we work with CAFI and Magma. Magma has a long waiting list for people who want to take English language training. And our programs do not cost very much. And we're here today to promote our diplomas in Moncton, or to the city of Dieppe. We want to work with the Francophone community. We can help immigrants integrate immigrants into the community. And we can also help with professional development and research. And I also want to talk about an upcoming event that we are currently organizing. It will be the Second Atlantic Canada Economic Growth Conference or to be held on May 15th to 17th at the Wingate Hotel. We are expecting 200 participants, including experts that come from around the world, as well as Canadians. And it will be from 8 to 5 with a lunch or with a breakfast and lunch and snacks as well. So there will be a cost associated with the conference. You know, given what's happening between the US and Canada, this will be an opportunity to talk about the economy in Atlantic Canada. At one point, it'll be for all of Canada, but we'll be focusing on Atlantic Canada right now. So we would like the city of Dieppe to be a partner. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Godbout. Thank you for the presentation. So you're here in Dieppe in May. Who would you like to participate in this event? Who's your typical client for this kind of event? For the conference? We are looking for partners, and especially the city of Dieppe, since the event will be at the Wingate Hotel. The partner would help us with promotion, and the participants, what kind of person is going to be participating? These will be experts and analysts, masters and doctoral students, and so you'll be looking at innovation and economic development. Okay, all right. All right, any other questions from councillors? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, and good luck with your event.
Maintenant pour le prochaine.
Thank you. The next item on the list is urban growth strategy. Mr. Girard.
Bonsoir, bienvenue.
Bonsoir, Monsieur le Maire.
Good evening. Welcome. Good evening, Your Worship, council members. This evening, we're giving you a quick update of the work as it relates to urban growth strategy. This work began back in the summer of 2024. So before we get too far into the presentation, I'm going to give you an overview of what we mean by a growth strategy and how this strategy fits into our current urban planning at the city. An urban growth strategy is not a legal requirement. It is a strategic document for us and to guide us in decision-making and to guide us in thinking about the work that is going to be done in 2026, 27, and for the review of the municipal plan and the zoning bylaw. The strategy for urban growth is a visionary document, on a long-term one. It will provide direction and guidance to all the discussions will be undertaken in 2026 and 2027 to review the municipal plan. Here, the work that we must do now is to make the link between growth, the urban growth strategy, and the strategic plan that we've just passed. So we're living at a time with great population growth, and it's accelerating. So we have to deal with the strategic issues that affect the city. So let me name some, which I think bring us in direct link to the growth strategy. So we have to find a link between these balance between urban areas and urban growth and urban transportation. So once again, the language that is used in our municipal strategic plan needs to be incarnated in the urban growth strategy. And the work right now is to find how we incarnate these issues of the municipality and relate them to the strategic plan. So in our strategic identity, we live in a friendly, nature-oriented, it's dynamic, and it's in high growth. There are strategic choices that must be made and related to this urban growth strategy. For example, matched with the development and valuing our natural and green spaces, dynamic, inclusive, to provide a well-being, an area, neighborhoods of well-being for the inhabitants of the city. So we have many objectives. The first issue is to think about and to set the stage as it currently exists in a preliminary report. So the work was related to the geography, the population profile as it exists today, real estate profile, and the current infrastructure. The work which is being done right now is to analyze anticipated development. So at this present time, we must project into the future because we are looking at long-term growth in the population. So these population projections are based on long-term events. So some elements can change that orientation, but we want to look at the future over the next 20 to 30 years. We're also looking at new trends for households. In 1950, households were very different than they are in 2000 and in 2025. So what is going to be the typical household? What are going to be the important components of households in the coming 20 years? Also, we're going to have to look at various different growth perspectives. And finally, we have to give ourselves a growth vision and answer very specifically to the question, where is the city going to grow? How is it going to develop? And what do we want to accomplish with all of that? And so briefly, to give you an overview of the work that has been accomplished and the work that is yet to be done, in the summer of 2024, we launched this project. The consultants prepared a preliminary report. This preliminary report was put onto our website. We held many information sessions and consultations at City Hall and throughout various places in the municipality back in November and December. I'll give you some details about public participation in the upcoming slides. Currently, we're working with our consultants and trying to write a draft of this document. The objective of my presentation this evening is to put you in context and to prepare you for the information session that we'll be holding with you next week on February 26th. I want to have you think about some of the ideas because we've been talking about this idea for a long time. And today we're at a point that when on February 26th, we'll be looking at growth scenarios, and we want to make sure that you are truly well informed and have the right information at hand. In April, we're looking at doing further consultations, but online with our population. And this consultation is more of an interactive one online. We'll be specifically talking about urban design. We'll be putting forward concepts that have affected the municipality in the last 5 years. By way of example, how do we integrate a big building into an existing sector? So we have transition zones. We are looking at building architecture. How do we integrate buildings within an existing neighborhood? Are there best practices? What is being done in other municipalities and so on? Another element, another issue that we see coming up, which affects the municipality, that we constantly are working at, is what are the best practices for row housing or townhouses. We're looking at all of this very specifically within and during that information session. Ideally, we'll be giving you a final document for your consideration, and that'll be with you by the summer of 2025. With regard to public participation activities, up to now, we've had 2 open sessions at City Hall, 1 information session online. I want to remark on the work of Charles-Éric, who's behind me. At this point, he has been doing the big work. I'm here not to take the credit, but we have to recognize Charles-Éric's work and the work of our consultants. Charles-Éric worked very hard at holding various information sessions at the market, at the aquatic center, at the community college, at Mathieu Martin, and there was an online project. And on this platform, we had information from the preliminary report, we had a public survey, we had a survey sent out to businesses, and also an interactive map. To summarize these participation series, we had over 1,000 interactions with members of public, and these contacts were held by way of conversations where we tried to explain what urban growth is, what the objectives of the strategy were, and we tried to get their feedback. Also, we had answers shared with us in writing. So we document these answers, and these answers were analyzed by the consultants. They were short and long answers, so about 1,200 interactions, and this is not over yet. Once again, when we talked with people, we talked about 5 major themes. So we talked about nature, environment, infrastructure, housing, culture, and community. Here, I'll be going into the second part of my presentation. I want to set the picture for you. And in the last census for Dieppe, Dieppe has some 28,000 in population. In 2024 rather, we had estimates from Stats Canada that would lead to an increase of 35,500. There's rapid growth, which is happening within the municipality. And so the opportunity is here to prepare this urban growth strategy. But as we look at this slide, you have to know that Dieppe's growth is nothing new. The city has had sustained growth over the years, but what has changed remarkably is the urban centers. In the coming slides, because I did a presentation last year to explain to you how the urban situation has changed, how the municipality, despite the fact that it wasn't a city in 1960, but we still had small villages, people who were having urban development, and all the points that you see in purple there, these were existing houses at the time. So you can see the picture of the city in 1960. So there was a single family home on a bigger lot. Moving ahead to 1975, you can see that there's a difference here in the form, the urban form, and you can see bigger structures, bigger forms. On the left, you can see Place Champlain. I think it's Mathieu Martin's school. It's either that or the community college. Basically, development is undertaken along Amiro Street, Chartersville Park in part, and on other axes of transportation. In 1990, the same trends were being seen, but now we see new roadways like Pascal, sorry. But the trend continues in single-family homes. In 2005, you're now starting to see more density. We're starting to infill those spaces that have been created in the past, and you can see we have some densification within the municipality, and you can see some new forms, some different kinds of homes like semi-detached and row housing or townhouses. Today, this densification continues, and you can see more and more different kinds of housing that are more dense. Once again, with this evolution, we have questions that need to be asked. There are many elements that need to be taken into consideration. So active transportation, urban transportation, choices need to be made. Many elements need to be considered. So here, when we talk about the kinds of housing, according to the last census, most of the houses were single-family homes in our municipality, individual homes, as you can see on this slide. You can see that there were 1,600 of this type of housing in 1 year, and in the middle, there were 2,300 houses in the multifamily. So this was in 2021. Since then, the major trend is to multifamily housing. However, a consideration is the change in households. Population is getting older here in Dieppe, and there's a cultural element which comes into play in all of these aspects. So why would someone choose one type of housing over another? So we're not here to say what kind of housing is better compared to another, but we are here to set forward the future development of the municipality. So here, as we project ourselves into the future with the population projections, you can see that you have low, medium, or strong population projections. So in 2056, with a slow population growth, the population could be around 55,000 people. But if you had strong population growth, we might hit 80,000 in population. Once again, the population issue, the municipality can't totally control who decides to come and live in Dieppe, but people come and live in Dieppe for all kinds of reasons, community living, employment possibilities, all kinds of reasons. But I want to show you a video that communication services and another service prepared for you. I think that this video has been shared with you by communication services last summer, but the video touches the concept of growing together. So I'll let you listen to the video. And once again, with the objective of giving you this video is to give you the context for next week's meeting. So let's hope that this video is going to work.
Pourrais-tu avoir le son? Dans ce cas-là, vous auriez le privilège de voir la vidéo de nouveau la semaine prochaine.
Well, I guess you'll see it again next week. So I have 2 other videos. There's no sound. There won't be any technical problems. So the objective of these two next videos is to illustrate the contrast between different kinds of urban forms and how different urban forms or different kinds of development can have an impact on the area. The example that you have in front of you here is part of Chartersville Road. And the part of Chartersville Road has 162 single-family homes on it. These 162 houses are found along a 2.3 kilometer stretch of road. There are 31,000 square feet of buildings and 245,000 square meters of lands. Just a quick animation to show you when you want to pick up 165 people at 4 or 5 bus stops.
Donc, la prochaine exemple ici,
So the next example here is, by contrast, the biggest building is Place Horizon in the municipality. So by way of example, it has 162 places in one building. There are 4,300 square meters on 7,300 square meters of land, and the frontage is 104 meters. So the comparison of 2.3 kilometers to 104 meters.
on peut voir que c'est très efficace de
You can
ramasser.
see it's very effective, efficient to pick up people in local transportation, but this is for illustrative purposes alone and to make you think about it. This next video, so right now, Dieppe has 12,000 household or homes. If they were set out like the Chartersville illustration, so here you have ribbon development where there was, if we had one home on each corner of the road, over 170 kilometers. So this is the distance from Dieppe to Fredericton. You could drive for 170 kilometers and there would be one single family home along the way until you got to Fredericton.
Donc, en contraste, si toute la
And by
municipalité
contrast, if the whole municipality were housed like in Place Horizon, you could go from Dieppe Boulevard, which includes the extension, and you could accommodate the whole municipality within that trip, so over 7.7 kilometers. So once again, the objective here is to set the stage for the questions to be asked, the discussions that are going to be held, the difficult discussions that are going to be held, but you have to look at as an overall population projections, the choices that we make. We invest in public transportation, asset management, the municipality's fiscal responsibilities. So all of this comes into the issues that need to be discussed, and eventually the council will give itself an urban growth strategy to direct growth over the coming years and to direct the discussions to review the municipal and the bylaws so we can add to our planning documents. This concludes my presentation and I can answer questions. Questions by council members? Or do you want to keep them for next week? Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I was simply thinking about the participants who came. So you had about 1,100 people come to your events? Yes. Almost 1,200 interactions. Because we always say that we want the community to be involved. I did the math quick. It's about 6% of the population. that came out? Is there a way of communicating differently? More surveys? You can have more people who will participate in surveys? I'm not telling you what to do, but that's not a very high number, you know, 6%. Well, according to the trends we're
Avec tout
seeing,
respect, c'est quand même un chiffre qui est
with
intéressant pour la
all due
municipalité. Puis
respect,
c'est pas nécessairement
it's a
qu'on
figure for
cherche.
the whole of the municipality. And it's not that we're necessarily looking for a magic number. We are looking for contacts with many and different people. So, for example, we went to the Dieppe market. We went to community college. We went to various places. So clearly, if we go to community college one day, we're not going to be able to speak to all the college students that day. But by using different platforms like the website, like social media, we are attempting to reach the highest number of people possible. Sure, we can always improve, and we'll take note of your comments. But for us, we think it was a level of success that we attained. You know, I think there are a lot of key decisions to be made and big decisions. And at the end of the day, what we want with our municipality, you know, where we want to be in 15 years. If this is what people want, you know, these are the questions I ask myself. On this council, there are 8 of us, but we're not the only ones who have the right to speak. Quite right. And so we're doing this presentation today. And, you know, it's being broadcast on YouTube. If you want to share it with all members of public, I would certainly invite members of the public to come and look at my presentation, to communicate with my team, so we can have open and frank discussions over the coming steps. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, I have a question. The consultations in April and May consisted of what? And will the public be able to be involved at that point? This is how it's going to work. There'll be an online platform, like a survey, for example, where people will be invited to come to the web page. We've created a specific page for urban growth, and people will be able to look at various scenarios for urban design and also look at a draft of the urban growth strategy. And on that page, you are able to share comments and reactions. We can certainly get a maximum number of people. In public participation, every method that is used has advantages and disadvantages. We had 2 open sessions. We had a very limited engagement. Might have been the weather, it might have been the time of year, and so on. We're trying to find different methods to meet up with as many people as possible. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We'll be hearing them in the coming weeks. Thank you. The next item brings us to Denis, who is going to want to talk to us about everything related to community development. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. Instead of talking about buildings, we're talking about people. Or maybe we're talking about buildings too. So this evening, we're presenting you part of the recreation master plan. It was presented to you in November 2021, and it has a 10-year timeline. 14 recommendations are in the master plan, 46 actions that we have to accomplish over the next 10 years. There are 3 intervention fields. So the first is programming, services, and recreation that I'm going to be giving you today to tell you where we are and where we are in that intervention. Also, leisure and sport infrastructure. This presentation will be given at another time. And parks and green spaces. As you know, a study has been done with regard to a master plan for parks and green spaces. And the recommendations that were found within this master plan will be the subject of a future presentation. Many services were involved in the recreation master plan, not just recreation, but operations, communication, and urban mobility, immigration, and a couple of other city services as well. Let me go through the recommendations relative to the program. So 1.1 is to simplify and improve the role of the city in supporting community organizations which offer programs. The first action that came out of this was to take advantage of opportunities to work more closely with current and new groups. We are changing the recreation structure. Beforehand, there were 2 officers. There are 4. Eventually, there are 3 now, but eventually there will be 4. So I took 2 community officers responsible, and I created 2 people responsible for events. Previously, these people were involved, and so we thought it would be interesting to see what would happen if we separated the responsibilities and provided support to our community organizations. So since 2023, we have this structure, and it works fairly well. 2 officers responsible for community development. They are responsible for community organizations. One is looking at sports, and the other is looking at social, cultural disciplines, because we thought that was a logical way to divide things. For community development in 2024, we looked at how we can work together with various groups. For a long time, our community officers attended evening meetings and yearly meetings. So what we propose is, instead of going to these evening meetings where there are long discussions, we said we would meet one-on-one meetings, 30, 45, 60 minutes, once a month with the people who are responsible for the groups, the president or employees, to have real conversations and to see about the opportunities that could happen. We've been doing this for a year, and we've noticed that the organizations, be they the employees or the chair people, really appreciate the support of the city. And we have also many tools with our consultants and community groups. We have groups. In 2023, we have a consultant came and sat down with Soccer Dieppe, and we came up with a document of statutes and regulations. And so we have the same model, and we simplified it. So it became a template for other groups. So a group that wants to begin a nonprofit that doesn't have these tools, well, it gives them an opportunity to launch with a tool that works. And we also worked at planning, jeunesse, Soccer Dieppe, and other groups that are important to us so they can head in the right direction. With the Salon du Livre, we looked at policies for managing conflicts of interest. With the basketball, Dieppe, we worked with them on their governance, and we have various policies regarding risk management, harassment, etc. So we also have other policies. Sure, we have worked with various groups, so they have the tools in hand, and they can share with other groups, so it will be appropriate for them as well. So there's much work to be done. It's not done yet, but we've developed 7 to 8 policies that the organizations perhaps didn't have. And for them, it's easy to create things with, because we have help from the community groups. We created agreements with Soccer Dieppe. We signed an agreement with pickleball as well. With the tennis group, we signed some agreements that explain our undertaken. We are looking at current policies. And the last one, we have added to people for reservations. So the ICE is busy. We only have 1 person doing reservations, and ICE is an important priority. So in 2024, we added a 2nd person, and this person looks after outside places and the gyms in the city. So a 2nd support to our sporting groups who want to use our infrastructure in a one-on-one approach and a better service in our capacity to help people.
1.1.2, commit to supporting the special needs of seniors and seniors organizations. So as you probably know, the Council Advisory Committee, there's an age-friendly municipality. We have a program, a committee that takes care of programming for seniors. In 2022 and 2023, we did a study of seniors' needs, and then 23 to 24, we looked into a feasibility study for a one-stop shop for seniors. In the senior study, the first point was to look at a single window, and the second part was to improve communications with seniors so that they know what's going on in they don't know, not all of them have Facebook or social media. So we wanted to know how can we improve communication so that people know what services are available for these groups. We also met with the seniors clubs in Dieppe, the Francophone Association of Seniors, and there were 4 groups, and we sat down with them and looked at what we could do in collaboration. Those groups used to kind of work separately, but we wanted to look at how these groups could work together and share resources. We also worked with the Foyer Notre-Dame du Sacré-Cœur to create a concept to allow seniors to get out of their house for 2 or 3 hours. And we looked at providing services like grass cutting and things like that. There was funding made available from social development to work on that cause. So there's lots of things happening in this in terms of seniors. 1.2 or 1.1.3, simplify policies and rules to better support community organizations offering programs. So there was a report on the review of municipal policies related to community grants. There were a few recommendations that came out of that reports. They haven't been implemented yet, but this is something we're going to be looking at in the coming year. There is reflection on the pricing policy and their funding allocation policy as well. So our policy dictates the fees that we charge at arenas and our municipal halls, and the, who we choose, who gets the baseball field at first, who gets the other facilities first. So that's something that we'd like to continue in 2025. And as I mentioned earlier, there's monthly meetings that continue. We have 40 or so organizations, so we meet with about 20 or so per month. So both of our development officers do this on an ongoing basis. And we're trying to add programs as well to our schedules. So, whether it's a winter carnival, summer carnival, we look how we can work with various organizations to add to our programming within our existing programs. 1.2.1, to seek opportunities to create a subsidy plan for existing community programs. This is something we haven't really dealt with yet, but we can't work on all actions in the same year, but there are certain things that we've set aside, but we'll go back to them in we have a bit of time left to look at this more. Promote and launch programs such as incubation sessions for groups of similar interests to help generate ideas and plans for new programs that help fill current gaps in the community. So in community development, since March, we've organized sessions for our community groups. So we offer 4 sessions per year on Saturdays. They last from 6 to 7 hours. We bring in professionals to provide support. And we were really surprised that 40 or so individuals participated on an ongoing basis in all 4 sessions that we offered since the beginning. So we've provided sessions with the government. The provincial government came to talk about the grants that were available to community groups. There was a session on governance, another one on fundraising and sponsorships, and another one on tools that are available. from the communications department. And then recently we had a session on conflict management in committees and on boards, following a strong request from our groups there. How people can work together and how they can collaborate. We also did a study of the needs of young people and seniors. And during our training sessions, we invited organizations to talk to us as well. So rather than having them being there listening to us, we did a brainstorming exercise with the groups, and that led to about 20 topics being identified. And what we did is we went and sat at different tables, we debated, or we discussed various issues. And then at the end, we had a report, and we are working on identifying what our community groups need from us. Strengthen the current focus of recreation staff to assist community organizations that offer programs by expanding and improving the programs offered in Dieppe. I spoke about this earlier. We're in year 1, so some of these things we'll start incorporating in future programming. We added a student employee during the summer to support our officers, to help out with projects that could help our community organizations. And we restructured the Pro Kids program as well. Pro Kids had become a city program, and we went back to the start, and now it's a community group again that manages the group, and that frees up time from our program officers to do work in other areas. Examine rink availability, optimization, and use in Dieppe. And I think there's no secret. Our 4 rinks are being used to the maximum. And I think it's the same in other communities as well. So we're looking at whether we can maximize rink availability for Dieppe groups. We heard from a number of groups that time is limited. So we're engaging in reflection on the pricing policy and ice allocation to see if we can make improvements and how we can allocate ice time to better serve our community groups in Dieppe. And how do we manage the regional groups that are growing in popularity? We have great facilities here. And we're looking at the recovery of usage data. We're collecting data to see if we're at 100% usage or whether there's room to maneuver. And in April, we're going to lose 1 rink surface. So how are we going to manage that with the high demand for ice? So it's going to be a test for us and for our community organizations. So we want to know how popular our rinks are in Dieppe. And then there is a quarterly information newsletter. We have a page on our website that talks about grants as well. That information used to be kind of all over the place, but now we put it on one web page. In 2024, we also there's a quarterly newsletter, and the point of that newsletter is that we wanted everybody included. And there's also a web page for communications, one-on-one capsules, or dedicated to organizations, or then that'll equip to give tools to organizations. Design a web page or portal so that community groups can access the information created for Action 1.3.1. So there is a toolbox for communications, how to manage a Facebook page, managing an Instagram account, a Twitter account, recommendations on web tools, and this is growing in popularity because this is, and then public relations consulting. So these are tools that our community groups have access to through our website. Work to establish a schedule of programs offered by the city, 2 to 3 performances per week, open mic nights, and similar community-wide events on the Place 1604 site. So last year, we saw the return of the connection zone to Place 1604. And, you know, we've been trying things in the last few years. And we've also looked at developing stakeholders like the Wingate Hotel, the Art Center, the market, and we want to develop those further as we go ahead with our programming. Staff to review and identify 2 to 3 flagship events per year that characterize the city of Dieppe and target community partners with whom to collaborate and who will become key players in these events. So I listed a few events here. I'm not 100%, you know, this is work that we're trying to target 2 or 3 flagship events in Dieppe. You know, we have a focus on la francophonie. We want to be recognized as a francophone municipality. So I've listed Monde en Fête, that started in 2022 and it's grown a bit. Dieppe Pride seems to want to do something in July. And then there's Fusion, which is a new event. So we're kind of discovering which events and how we can better position ourselves and identify real 2 to 3 flagship events for Dieppe. Create an online community calendar that enables organizations to promote and communicate programs centrally. So right now we have the municipal website with a community calendar. So community organizations could submit their activities and the communications department will add them to the calendar. There's also a Dieppe Connect Facebook group, and I think it started in 2021, 2022 during the pandemic, and we now have 5,700 subscribers. So some groups will often ask us to put their events on our website, and the communications department created Dieppe Connect so that organizations could put their information there and the public could go and see what was happening in the city. So, and this has led to better results, and it works for some activities. Using the City of Dieppe's GIS data, creating an online mapping system accessible to the general public, including information on parks, trails, and outdoor spaces. So this project was completed and is constantly changing with the addition of new infrastructure. We continually update our GIS data. And then there's also the city's website under the map tab. If you go there, you'll see all our parks and our trails that are inventoried on that on the website. Design a seniors mobilization strategy with the help of the communications department to better mobilize seniors to take part in recreational activities and encourage the community to participate. That's something that we'll be working on. We're not there yet, but that's we're planning on working on in the coming year with the communications department and the various seniors committees that exist in the community. 2.1.4, there was a proposal to hire communications employee responsible for communicating and promoting group activities and program offerings to the general public. So the communications team has grown since the master plan was put in place. So the communications team already has a mandate to communicate and promote the activities and programs offered by the municipalities. There are a number of tools, Dieppe Mag, website calendar, and Dieppe Connect. These are all tools that have been created. And so the communications team is there to promote activities. There was also a proposal to create a service level agreement that defines the roles of the communications and recreation departments, including frequency, level of collaboration and communications. After the adoption of the master plan, it was agreed at this point that was not valid, as we do not make service agreements internally. Review the capabilities of maintenance staff, taking into account new and planned facilities. And this is something that's carried out every year. And, you know, we plan resources based on the events and the infrastructure involved and depending on our needs as a municipality as well. And then the 2.2.2 is quite similar, create a 10-year plan to extend maintenance and other staffing requirements. So we want to make sure that we plan what's coming in the next 10 years and that we have enough staff to do the work, especially when we add new infrastructure. So, you know, gyms and baseball fields, we want to make sure that we have the resources internally so that we can maintain those facilities. I spoke earlier about this one here. In 2024, we created a new master plan for parks and green spaces. So the objective of action 3.1.1 carry out a geospatial analysis to determine passive recreation opportunities in the various municipal neighborhoods. Now, we didn't necessarily reproduce that in the master plan for parks and green space, but there was something else that was recommended. And when those documents are represented, I think you'll be able to determine how this analysis was carried out. The next one, carry out a geospatial analysis to determine opportunities for random activities to participate in their current facility. So what we're talking about here is mapping where our activities take place, and we want to be able to offer activities within a radius of approximately 800 meters or a 10-minute walk of where people live. Now, this is something that we haven't really done yet, but it's something that we do plan to look at. It would be difficult to achieve this goal given the size of the city, but I'm almost at the end here. So 3.2.1, examine the possibility of creating additional passive and active recreation spaces in existing parks, in addition to already offered by the city of Dieppe, to help meet the growing demand for self-sufficient passive and active recreation. So for a long time, minor hockey worked, but now we have young people that don't necessarily want to play, you know, to participate in an organized group. They want to do their own thing. So, you know, when it's ringette, hockey, and etc., that's organized, but passive recreation is a little bit more complicated because there's no organization. So how can we make sure that young people and less young people can take part in sports without it being organized? So we can maybe meet this need by creating passive spaces. Take into account the special needs of adolescent girls aged 13 to 19 when considering passive leisure opportunities. So we did a study of young people's needs in 2024, and we're working with the Boys and Girls Club of Dieppe, Youth House, the School Community Workers, the Arts Center, and others to see how we can take the recommendations of that plan and how we can implement them. So we want to see how we can do things that the young people talk to us about so that we can offer them activities. It's easier for older groups and for younger groups, but for this age group, especially since the pandemic, it's a little bit more complicated. Partner with the Dieppe Public Library, Dieppe Youth House, Dieppe BGC, and other organizations that youth programs to understand what they currently offer and collaborate with them to expand their programs. This is a bit of a repeat of what we did before. So there's a community development strategy. We want to get feedback from these groups and share what the needs of the community are. And there's also closer ties with the library. And this is not the community officers that go and meet this. I meet with the library monthly to have conversations to see how we can complement each other. And then there's the future renovation of the youth house. So we're looking at the strategic planning long term. So we'll certainly be able to take the study of the youth house and adapt it. All right, it was a long presentation, but that's basically what we've been doing in the last 3 to 4 years with regard to the Recreation Master Plan. If you have any questions with regard to what was done, then I'm here to answer them. Any questions? Councillor Jeannet, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for this great presentation. And I just thought about something. At the end, you were talking about young people, how it's difficult to determine what they need. Has there ever been a link between Mathieu School to see if a committee could be formed to ask those questions and meet, occasionally with young people to see, what ideas? Well, often we start with the schools, and we had a consultant that had created those committees, and we could look at the list of people that she had, and in schools, or there's often different schools that kids get involved in, and that could be, there could be one committee that connects with the city. All right, thanks. Any other questions from councillors? Councillor Godbout. All right, in connection with young people, and since the youth house is not as active as it used to be, what could we do to address that? Maybe with the focus on disadvantaged youth more. How do we? What are we doing to kind of identify their needs as well? Well, that's one of the intentions of renovating the youth house. So the Boys and Girls Club has a certain group of ages, but in the last year, we probably didn't do a great job of connecting with this segment of the population. But that's something that you're going to focus on in the coming years. That's what I understood. Yes. Any other questions? Councillor Godbout. Sorry, Le Boutier. Thank you, Your Worship. All right, great presentation. Lots of information. When this plan was unveiled, there was a lot. There was a lot in it. With respect to, is there a yearly action plan so that we make sure that we meet the objectives over a 10-year period? Or to determine what the priorities are, so that well, there was a tool that was developed right at the start. So the master plan for a 10-year period, that's a long period. And the city has grown quickly. In 2021, we had a certain population, but in 10 years from now, we'll have a lot larger population. But there was an action plan that was created. There is an action plan that's created every year, and we have an idea of what's going to be planned for in terms of investments. Infrastructure is, when it comes to community development, it's different than infrastructure. The goalpost moves more than with physical infrastructure. So leisure programming doesn't necessarily have an end date. It evolves over time, but there is a logic behind what we're doing. Okay, well, you talked about a lot of studies that were done, but is there a plan to make sure that, do we consult with youth, with our seniors, so so that we address the gaps that, well, the master plan was ambitious. Now, how do we carry it out? You know, at the time it was created, priorities were perhaps different, but you know, how do we attain the most of the objectives? That's the important thing. Right, thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I have a second question. When we look at a leisure plan, you know, there's lots of activities, and it's great to see what's been done in the last 3 years. What is the role of volunteers? What's the interaction between leisure and the activities that you have and our volunteers? In recent years, we've seen, you know, with COVID, that had an impact. We saw a reduction in volunteers. Things are coming back, but coordinating volunteers and volunteerism doesn't seem to kind of have, we haven't got back on track. So is there an interaction or a role between recreation and volunteers? And how do you see that in the master plan? Well, I was talking about a group where we identified 20 topics, and 2 of those topics addressed the question of volunteer work. You know, earlier we had a website for the city where groups could go and they could announce their need for volunteers. Maybe we could reintroduce that. You know, I often hear that nobody wants to do a volunteer work anymore. I'm rarely asked to do volunteer work, and yet I would do volunteer work. So the Acadie Games, we've got 700 and 800 volunteers. So they have a strategy. But so my department is looking at how we can better support our groups and how we can mobilize volunteers through certain tools or certain activities there. I'm happy to hear that, because I think it's an area where, you know, people are looking for support. People are looking for a way to participate. Newcomers, you know, any new residents, you know, new residents are looking for ways to kind of get involved in the community. So I think we should look at that because it's part of the spirit and the commitment that we want to develop. Now, on August 15th, we asked volunteers, it was the first time that we asked volunteers to help us. And 3/4 of the volunteers that came to us were from the newcomer community. And we found, that was really appreciated. So it was a bit of a different formula, but, you know, people wanted to get involved. All right, Councillor Thibodeau.
An item, where was it? I think it was point 4. Item 4. 2.1.4. You talk about hiring a communications staff member. Are you hiring someone within your community service, or an officer with the communications service, which would serve you better? The master plan, if I've understood correctly, is to hire someone within our service to provide this type of service. But I think you have a chance to hire another person who can look after community services, but who is in communications, but is more directly related to us and the work that we do. Great, thank you. Anyone else? Doesn't appear to be any. So you can get off the hot seat now, I guess. Thank you. This brings us now to the long-awaited moment where we talk about money. Good evening and welcome. Thank you, Your Worship, council members, and colleagues. I have new glasses, so I'm trying to get used to them. It's a different way of focusing with them. Are the numbers bigger? A little smaller? How are they bigger? Oh, say, we'll show you how they get bigger. I'm here tonight to tell you about the revision of bylaw A6. It's related to the approval of budget expenses. The last time it was reviewed was in 2015. I assumed I didn't go back and check, but when I arrived here in 2008, I remember that we came to council for everything over $25,000. In 2018, we probably increased that to 50,000, and you're going to see this evening what I'm proposing. Every amount over $50,000 comes to council for approval. We're proposing that these limits be increased on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're going to look at establishing, if we want to have the logical hierarchy, which we didn't have previously in the city. So if you look to the bottom left, you can see that authorizations for directors was to $40,000, and then to the treasurer up to 50, and between the 40 and 50, the treasurer authorized, and above 50,000 it went to council. We realized that it doesn't really follow the administrative hierarchy. So we have a CAO and then an assistant CAO. So what we're proposing is that we're not changing things much. With a regular manager, it's under 40,000 for approval. We increase for directors, increase that to 50,000, and then the assistant CAO to 100,000, and the CAO to 250,000, and above 250,000 come to council. This is what we're proposing to you this evening. Would you compare this to the 3 big cities of New Brunswick? In Moncton, the directors can approve up to 25,000. The assistant CAOs to 500,000. There are 2 of them. So if it's an expenditure for functioning, they have authority for an amount of 500,000. So if it's a capital project, they can go to 5 million. So the CA can, so anything over those amounts comes to council. So it reduces the number of interventions, and you can see a little further on in my presentation what would Dieppe would do and the number of times that we come to council for various amounts. In St. John is a little like Moncton. You can see directors can authorize up to 25,000, and then the assistant is 100,000, and the difference between general expenditures and capital expenditures, 150,000 for general, 500,000 for capital, and then after that it goes to council. For Fredericton, it's a little different. You can see that the CEO, directors rather, to 25,000, and then it goes to purchasing, which we don't have today, which we hope to have in 2025, but they can authorize up to 100,000. Anything over 100,000 goes to the CEO. So it doesn't go to council after that. The only thing that goes to council in Fredericton, and it's going to be the same thing for us, are land purchases. So at this time, this city owns this asset. It comes to council no matter the amount, but for any other expenditures, most of the other expenditures in Fredericton, for example, nothing goes to council with regard to expense authorizations.
Donc, de notre côté, vraiment, ça diminue le fardeau.
So for us, it reduces the administrative burden for city staff. For example, at the last meeting we had, where there was a painting expenditure, it was 62,000. We came to council because it was over 50. Previously, this type of expenditure didn't come to council because it was under. Because of inflation, it means that staff have to draft a memo, which means that then it has to be sent to staff and then to council. And so it takes time to do this process. And that's my second point. So by increasing to 250,000, it reduces the time it takes to order a piece of equipment or other material. Now, we have authorizations for requests. So in half of these memorandums come for amounts under 250,000. So above 250,000, there are some 35 memos that will come to council. These are mainly capital expenditures, which are in high amounts, but under 250,000, which will no longer come to council. We're talking about the operating budget. We're talking about studies, just like what Alexandre showed you earlier, the urban growth strategy. That would be one item that would not come to council because it was under 250,000. Same thing for Indigenous knowledge renovations. It was 180,000 for the aquatic center roof. It wouldn't come here. For public works, purchases of the salt and sand, it was a budget of 210,000. So in theory, our purchases should be under 250,000. So it's just to give you an idea of the kind of memo that wouldn't come here. At the last meeting, I think there were, it had been authorized, you wouldn't have seen them. There was a consultation about management, a document that was over 60,000. And I forget the third one, and I mentioned one a moment ago, but those are just some examples. The Jeux de l'Acadie was another amount for that event. With regard to the amounts that are under 250,000 and which belong to the capital budget, we're talking about smaller projects. For example, the crosswalk on Dieppe Boulevard, extension of Benjamin Street, purchases of small equipment, most of the vehicles, snow blower, bus shelter, Chevy Tahoe for the fire service. And in addition to what we don't have today, and the way the bylaw is drafted now, any amount over the budget should come. It will give you a small margin. So this means above and beyond what has been authorized in a budget of 2.5 million for capital expenditures and the Champlain Road for $2 or $3 million. So this gives you a margin to maneuver. So if the budget is 2.3 million, we wouldn't come to council. So if it's more than 50,000, we would come back to council to authorize this expenditure. The other ones, that is with regard to general operations, we want to have a margin of maneuverability of 25,000 in both cases for expenses that are non-budgeted, so not at all budgeted, and the others that were budgeted, but where we exceed it by $25,000. So this gives us some flexibility up to $25,000. If you look at the city of Moncton here, they have given themselves some $40,000 worth of flexibility. As I said, the 40,000 will come to council versus under 40,000, it would be the CEO who would be involved with that. So this concludes my presentation on the topic. What could I add quickly is that this is the first part, if you will, of, how can I say this? We're going to come back to council for a second part with regard to the bylaw. So today we're just talking about expenditure approval. We haven't really talked about how we're going to get the expenditure. Are we going to check in 3 different places or 3 different contractors to get 3 different prices? We're not touching that part yet. The way it's drafted, we have at a minimum to have to follow the provincial rules with regard to public markets. But in the future, when we have someone who's looking at supplies, we are going to complete the bylaw and we will have some more amounts in, but we're going to wait until we get that person before we address that part of the bylaw. That concludes my presentation. Council members? With regard to the presentation, the elements that you have understood, you have a lot of information that's part of the budget process. So you can look at this part, and the issues and files that are part of the budget are presented by staff. So council is informed that these investments will be done through the course of the year. And so we're just confirming that we're going to move forward, but the budget is approved for the coming year. And so there's information that you're going to be getting constantly over the course of the budgetary process. Yes, of course, it doesn't change anything at all. It's the council who will have the budget framework. And once again, we're talking at the inside each component of the budget. Councillor Godbout. I have a couple of questions. Currently, when we authorize, in the existing framework, what control measures do we have currently in place which accompany this delegation of authority for approving these expenditures? For example, does each individual have his or her own processes to follow? How does this happen? What internal measures of control do you have to ensure that this is administered? So as soon as the purchase order is in the system, this is where the hierarchy of authorizations is done. So an employee, for example, I'm looking at Raymond here. He just sent me his chart 2 or 3 weeks ago where there's a list of all the employees who have the amounts that they are authorized to spend. And what we do is we put this information in the system. So when the person does the purchase order, if they are authorized to purchase up to $5,000, if they do a PO, a purchase order, and they have an amount of 10,000, they can authorize it. So then it goes to the next person who can authorize it, that their supervisor. So this is how it works in the system currently. And when the auditor for the city comes, do we include the auditing of these processes? Yes, of course. I am very much in favor of authorizing people who know what their fields and who are the specialists to see if it's a reasonable price with these things. But these are internal control measures that need to be in place to ensure that there's no abuse or anything else. These are the questions. That's where I'm heading with my questions. There are a couple of exceptions, for example, which we should take into consideration given the amounts. I don't know if you've thought of things that, despite the authorizations you have, that might not be covered. For example, you talked about land purchases because we acquire legal responsibilities upon the purchase of these lands. So how do you set out the exceptions in this type of context? What will we do to make sure that the person who has the authority, so for example, you have 250,000 to the CEO, if the CEO is informed, if they can't purchase a piece of property, how does it happen? Well, it's the way that the PO is drafted, but any land purchase has to go through a mechanism. So we are in consultation. So McIntyre is our trustee. So that's my service, which then manages this specific thing with regard to land. The same is our practice today. As soon as there's a land purchase, it has to come to council. No ifs, ands, or buts. So there are a couple of scenarios that I'd like you to think about when you develop your internal controls that come to mind. When there are indemnity clauses for purchase agreements, you can have a purchase agreement for a piece of equipment or a service, or I don't know what it might be, but it could be for under $40,000. But there's an indemnity clause which gives much more strict responsibilities. So how do you manage these scenarios? And if you have any of these scenarios, in fact, but I'd like you to think about it. If we do have these scenarios, and I would like your comments about how we could address these issues. And the other is single provider contracts. Around the table, we talked recently, but when we have a single service contractor, we have a specific scenario. There's no competition, there's nothing else. There's another control measure that needs to be put into place in those circumstances, if only to protect the person who's approving the contract, to ensure that there was some thought behind it. It would be an exception to this authorized increase. When you have a contract with a single provider, we're going to put much more emphasis on that when we do the second phase of this study, but currently we're going to follow at the very minimum what needs to be done, legally speaking. Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay. Pas d'autres questions? Alors,
any other questions? Councillor Le Boutillier, yes, for your information, come back in March, early April to review the bylaw in public before council. It is now being drafted. We'll have it translated as well. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but we should be here by end of March, early April. Thank you, Your Worship. I see that at the end of it all, as we mentioned here, these are things that have already been approved in the budget. We know the matters of the budget, but more important as councillors, with regard to the administrative structure, to ensure where the money goes and to manage it properly. So as we mentioned, and you mentioned as well, the treasurer is going to ensure that there are good internal controls to protect everyone. That's the best thing. And these are best practices. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you. I think Councillor Brideau. It's something else. It's another item. Okay, we'll come back to you in a moment. Any other questions? No? Let's move on with our evening. But we're eager to hear, as the English expression goes. Oh, I've just forgotten what it was. Okay. Sometimes the most simple things become very complicated. As long as we don't start tripping all over ourselves to be more Catholic than the Pope. Okay. There we go. That's it for the evening. Anything else, Your Worship? There are the updates for commissions and external committees. If you don't have any updates, that's fine. But if you have some, then that's great too. I think that Councillor Brideau had already asked for the floor. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a comment which I'll direct to the CAO of the city. This morning, I came here to the office and I saw that the Canadian flag was at half-mast, and the Acadian flag should also be put at half-mast. Yes, the Acadian flag was rolled up on the flagpole because of the high winds. And as soon as it gets unfurled, we'll be bringing it down to half-staff. But this morning, we didn't want to break anything. Yes, it'll be done with the other flags as well. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Godbout. Just to share with councillors that we had a regular meeting of the police authority in February, and we had an update for each of the governance committees, quality and control. I can't remember what the name is in French. And then finance gave their report and they provided an annual plan. So we've seen a big improvement with regard to governance, the structure and the qualifications of the committee. An employee came to talk to us as well. So we're seeing the results of these decisions. It's great to see. I also wanted to report that in the quality of policing group, we had a discussion, a closed-door discussion with the superintendent and other members of the RCMP as related to key performance indicators, the KPIs that are going to be made public very soon. We went into the details of these KPIs, and we've targeted a smaller number of them so it'd be more useful. And we want to make sure that we get the interventions that we need, because there seemed to be some good progress coming along with regard to the information, which is much more available. So beyond the information that we've received, statistically speaking, we should be able to be getting the KPI results. And so some great work is being done, not only in committees, but around the table. I think the next meeting is in a couple of months' time. And between now and then, there are work plans for each of the committees. I just wanted to share that update with you, and I'll keep you up to date as soon as we get these key performance indicators updated. And we're looking at open source data so people can have access to much more information, not only for researchers, but other people who want to follow along. Thank you. Any other comments, questions by council members? On behalf of staff? Anything? If you dare. Okay, we're done. Good evening, everyone.